Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. I appreciate you all being here on a Monday afternoon before Thanksgiving. I'm just going to remind you right now, you need to go get pumpkin at the store. Anyway, this is Women Are. This is our last episode for this 8-episode season. Hopefully we'll do more. And it is a panel show featuring creative professionals talking about their career journeys in a fun and frank way. And oh my gosh, I have an amazing lineup for you today, and I'm so excited for it. I am intimidated by all the women here, intimidated, but also love and admire them. It's not intimidated. It's more like, oh, wow, I know them. So I'm very excited for this episode. It's been an inspiring journey for me over all these episodes because I've been exposed to so many wonderful artists in so many fields. And this is the culmination of all that. So anyway, it's so wonderful. Before I get to all the details, I do want to say that we do give charitable donations every single time we have a panel. And this week is no different. We will be giving $750 to the Writers Guild Foundation today. It's an organization that preserves the history and craft of screenwriting. They have writing projects and volunteer and mentoring opportunities. They also run a library at the WGA that is the only library in the world dedicated to screenwriting itself. You can go there and study. It's a wonderful space, except now it's closed. So just forget that part. Anyway, I'm excited to be able to contribute to that. And I want to thank Twitch for sponsoring and now allowing us to be able to do all that. Okay, so from the TV show You to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to One Day at a Time to Midnight Texas to every genre in between, the 4 women on this panel are so incredible. And they are all showrunners. And if you don't know what a showrunner is, we're going to get into it. But basically, they are boss people. Boss ladies, but also boss people. And I want to introduce them and have them say a little bit about themselves each before we get into the questions, starting with Gloria Calderon-Kellett. Gloria.
Me.
Yeah, can you introduce yourself to the panel, to the audience, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Gloria Calderon-Kellett. I am the showrunner, one of the showrunners. I'm co-showrunner of One Day at a Time, which is on Netflix, and then was on Pop TV, and then was on CBS, and who knows where it's going to be next, guys. We want to be on every channel. And I have a new deal at Amazon where I'm making a bunch of new stuff that I'm very excited about.
Very excited. I'm sure we can't learn about it, but I cannot wait to see it. Marissa Tantrone, who is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world and one of my friends, but also an amazing, amazing writer, showrunner. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me. My name is Marissa Tantrone. I'm one of the creators and showrunners of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We ran for 7 years. Our series finale was just aired this year. And now on to the next. We have some things, generating at various places, and I will soon be able to talk about them in the near future.
Yay. Yeah, you guys, we're talking to Hollywood people now so they're going to have secrets, and they're going to be great secrets that you definitely want to know the answer to, but you're not going to be able to know it. Our next guest is Owusu-Breen. Monica, could you please tell a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I am Monica Owusu-Breen.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I flip around with it too, so no. And so I created and ran Midnight Texas. My old writing partner and I, who I miss terribly, ran Brothers and Sisters for a couple of years. And now I'm just developing a lot of stuff I love, and then it goes away. I'm very happy with it. So, we're living in that good place of creativity.
I sense a lot of layers to what you're saying.
So many layers. But it's all good. It's all good. I'm happy to be here.
Hopefully we'll be able to peel back those layers as we talk through it, because I want the audience to understand the highs and the lows of Hollywood. If anyone's thinking about getting in there, or also just sympathize when you watch a TV show, you should really understand how it's made and how hard it is to get made. Last but never least is Sarah Gamble, who is an incredible person. I've had the privilege to work with a couple of times, and I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Sarah.
It's nice to see you.
Yes.
And your blurry background.
I'll give you all the tips. I'll send an email out.
Felicia. Right now I'm running the show You, which I co-created with Greg Berlanti. We just started production in the middle of this pandemic, which has been interesting. And people who know you might know me from co-creating The Magicians, because you had an arc on that show, which ended its run, I feel like less than a year ago, but also a century ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's very weird to look back. Yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ended this year, but does it feel like 8 years ago, Marissa?
It's interesting. I feel like we had multiple goodbyes with the show, because we wrapped production July of 2019, and then post in October. And then, so we thought, okay, once post is done, then we'll be able to actually say goodbye to the show and put it away and move on to something else. And then, of course, we have this year that is 2020. You know, our whole idea, everyone was saying like they wanted this year to be about travel. That was our plan, to take a year off and have some quality family time and travel and do all the things that we were unable to do for all that time while running the show. And so no, that didn't happen.
Nope.
No. But then, you know, the show, the final season aired, and it was sort of nice to revisit that and show to the world this thing that we had been kind of we had put away for a little while. And I think once the finale finally aired, then we had yet another cathartic goodbye. And now we're just ready for whatever's next. We kind of really leaned into, we used the pandemic as a way to really lean into, let's take a break and be a family and actually have dinners with one another, because that is something that you don't ever really get to do as a family when you are working.
Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about that, because 3 out of 4 you have kids, and I don't know how you do. I mean, and Sarah's doing 2 shows at once. So you guys are going to understand how, okay, first of all, TV is not made and then just released the next day. I say that only because I think people do underestimate the amount of time, the number of people that takes to even make the tiniest bit of film. And just like I was on Supernatural, I finished filming in March. I went up and did a little bit for 18 and 20. And they just they shot 20 just on a lark because I was there, but I was supposed to go back up. And then nobody went back up. So, but then that was 5 months ago. And then you do ADR and you kind of see it again, and you say goodbye. So it's like this whole step of how film is made. And hopefully, if you guys have any questions about what these women do, about their shows or anything, please just put them in the chat. And I have a producer pulling things out to help you guys understand what they all do and how amazing they are. First, I just want to talk a little bit about how you guys got into writing and what led you to this path of being a showrunner who is in charge of a show or multiple shows. Because that path is not only always like, I want to write and I become a writer, right? Like Gloria, you and Sarah and Marissa are actors and performers. And so that's a really interesting, and Monica, I'm not sure, I couldn't tell from your biography if you were ever an actor, but no, okay.
I couldn't do trust falls and was kicked out of college acting. So that is just my truth. I couldn't do it. I was just, I can't do it still. I've been married forever. I can't fall into, I don't trust. So there you go.
All right. Well, you're probably better off for that anyway. But Glory, tell me a little bit about your journey into writing. What was what first hooked you, and how did you get to this windy path of running a TV show?
Well, the quick version is, long line of Cuban storytellers and just love, general storytelling. So I was very drawn to that. I thought that meant acting. And because I think that's what we know that's a job. I think that people don't know that showrunner is a job. I certainly didn't know how TV was made. I know there are names at the end, but I didn't process that there were a bunch of people that made it. So when I came to LA to be an actor, I started going on auditions, and everything was gangbanger's girlfriend and gangbanger's sister. And so it was literally like, oh, but she's too white to be Latina. I'm like 100% Latino. Okay. I guess I tan like a dream. I'm just a vampire because I'm in a room writing all day. But I would get tan and I'd do my hair all chola, and I'd be like, Chewy, put the gun down. And I was like, this is honestly this is not humane. I don't know anybody in a gang. I don't so it just became frustrating. And then roles for women, forget it, right? So it's like, well, wait a minute, there's not great roles for women. The roles for Latina women are I got a prostitute audition once, very excited because layers, I don't know. So I was I will write something because that at least that's going to be. And then the moment I really wrote something and started putting that out there, people got very excited. And then I just rode the horse in the direction it was going.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as I've gotten to be a writer more and been in rooms, then people would just be like, you should do this part. You're real, you know. So so I do a part a year. I would say I'm offered something every year that's small and fun, which keeps that itch, which is lovely. But I love being a showrunner. It's my favorite job, is telling everybody what to do. It's the best. In fact, I'll tell you the problem of quarantine is that my parents are across the street. We're a freaking sitcom. My parents live across the street, so we go over there every day with my kids, and I will try to tell a story and they keep interrupting me. And I was like, and Dave's like, you're not a showrunner here. We don't have to listen to your whole story. And I'm like, oh, you're right.
Amazing. But that's the kind of personality you need. Sarah. Okay, Sarah, I want to hear how you got into it, because I kind of knew an actor, but when I looked, I was like, I should have stalked my friends more, because I'm fascinated with her bio. Like, tell me how you got into this, and how you got to be running multiple shows at the same time, and how do you sleep at night? Do you?
I do. I have strict rules about getting sleep now. I learned the hard way that it's a marathon, not a sprint. I guess I was doing a lot of theater. I studied acting at UCLA, and I too was going out for parts that I had like a lot of notes on the script. And I hope they don't still say this, but they would tell me I looked too ethnic.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I'm like marginally a white girl, but not in there just were very few lanes to be in when I was 20 and trying to be an actor. So I started to write with friends, just to write material for us to perform. And I just feel so at home when I'm doing that. I didn't even know TV writing was actually a thing until, I thought, oh, I'll write movies. That's shiny. That's fun. And in getting an agent, she said to me, if you want steady work, if you want to see your stuff get on the air the same year you write it, if you want just consistency in your life, write some TV specs. And as soon as I got in a writer's room, I realized that this was like a lifestyle I could really enjoy and kind of do for a long time, because you go off on your own to write, but you do get to kind of hang out all day and eat snacks and share your problems with other people. Like, my problems are your problems. I'm solving your problems with you. It's a good feeling for a writer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I remember going to the magician's writing set, and you had unicorn hats and dartboards and so much fun.
Every room has its own personality, is my theory. And, some are very serious. The U room feels a lot more like group therapy, and all of the toys in that room, RIP that room. Now we're on Zoom all the time, but all of it were like, fidget spinners and stuff for people to relax. But something about the magicians, it was just like, you have to wear a unicorn hoodie when you're pitching. You don't have to, but you're encouraged to wear a crown, wave a wand. It just kind of got clear. Something about like kids stuff is helpful in a writer's room. Just reminds you it's not rocket surgery,
Yeah. No, I've had a lot of friends in writers' rooms, like, it's the misery that I cannot go to work anymore. But some of them are like, it's a joy. So it really is the leader that sets the tone. And that's really the tone of the showrunner. Hence these women. Monica, how did you get into writing, and how do you like to set the tone in your writer's room? I like this contrast.
It's so funny, because I think about, I was a liar as a child, and I think part of it is that my family's peculiar and I kept moving around. So like, I would always tell people lies about my family, and then I always wanted to be a writer. I learned English watching television. And so to me, and then I took a circuitous route because my dad didn't think it was a real job. And so I went to a really fancy school and tried stuff. And then I was almost at a PhD, and then I met Allison Shapker, who was my writing partner. And then we just started writing scripts instead of our dissertation.
Wow.
And that worked out. So yeah, and it was funny, like, just to sort of focus on the show running part of it. We got onto Brothers and Sisters after a really tragic, like, you're right, Sarah, every room has its DNA, its personality, and some of them are traumatic. Like, some of them are like, like you go home and rock yourself to sleep at night. And so like we were coming off of that, and then we get a show. And so we're like, all right, how do we make our personality fit showrunner? So I read the book, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. We were told to fire someone right away to prove our balls, I guess, or something. And it was 3 of the weirdest, most miserable, most I almost died years of my life. And then cut forward, Marissa, who I worked for her at a time where I was just like, I don't know if I even like this fucking job. I never want to run a show again because I don't want to die. And then she so kind and sure of herself and no bullshit. Like you just say what you want, and there was no bullshit. And that was so rare to know that I didn't have to make myself turn into someone else, that I could just be me, and I don't need to work with assholes. I don't need to become an asshole. I can let assholes go because they're assholes and they should find other assholes to work with. Like, it was just very like grounding, I guess. So thank you, Marissa. I was really happy.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. I was going to say you, Monica, you are so wonderful, and you should never try to be anything other than who you are. And also, I was so excited to meet you when you actually said yes to the job, first of all. I was so excited to meet you, and also like you being a mother and having, had all the experience that you had. And I just remember all the conversations I would have with you. And I just thought, oh my God, if only when I get to the place when I finally open up my life into the journey of motherhood and parenthood, like I would hope to be as like even keeled as you all the time. So I know where you were coming from, was mired in stress and rocking yourself to sleep at night, but you would never know. You never brought that to the room. And I'm just glad.
Such a good room. It was such a good room.
It was definitely
like I will model every room after that room.
Well, I mean, Marissa has the best style of anybody in Hollywood. Like, look at her office now. Like, her house is impeccable. It's so beautiful. And I was like, did a designer do this? And she's like, no, I just did it. I was like, how are you good at everything?
But you also know I'm an insane person. Like the level of cleanliness is to my.
It is. It's. I've never seen a cleaner. I mean, I don't know what you do all day. 40% of it has to be cleaning because it is immaculate. I've never been to a hotel that looked nicer. So
I use cleaning as my procrastination tool.
Oh, that's nice.
That's my way to avoid doing anything real. Is just like do that.
The house has become my dorm room these days. It's just.
It's hard. How are you guys operating from home? Like Zoom rooms, how do you be, it's hard enough to be a boss. And as you mentioned, you have to read, there's certain ideas that you have to be a boss as a woman, right? There are some things that if you're too nice, people walk over you. If you're too assertive, people are like, what a bee, like it is so hard to balance being authoritative and in charge with being a woman, because there are all these unspoken rules about how women should interact with men, essentially, because it's on their terms. Like, how do you guys navigate that? And is it harder in a virtual environment now? I can imagine the challenges are a lot to be able to have that authority, but also set the tone that you guys were talking about.
I don't know anything about it because you've had some time off. So I have yet to try this new animal of running a room on Zoom. I can't imagine how you women are doing it. So
the positive thing is, I think it's harder for people to take up a ton of oxygen because you're in a Brady Bunch space. So there's an equalizing part to it. As exhausting as it is, I've noticed the blowhards have a harder time than the quiet, thoughtful. Like it's just been an interesting sort of anthropological, like who functions well being on screen.
Sarah, how did you find it different? I mean, to be online with the people you're the boss of.
It is more intense. I could not do a day as long as we do in the room. And I also think writers' rooms do tend in some way to reflect the inner workings of the showrunner or the head writer's mind. And so I'm very circular. So I go in there and I want to get a lot done. But if we get stuck, I'm like, have you guys seen that YouTube video where the guy eats like the hottest corn chip on earth? Hey, writer's assistant, would you please find that for us? And then we take 15 minutes to watch, Old Greg or something.
Yeah, so good. Old Greg is the best thing ever put on film.
I feel like every year I show old Greg.
Do you know one time, I hate to drop this note, I hate to drop any names because I don't do that often, but I was at a party with Edgar Wright and he was like, hey, I'm going to drinks. Do you guys want to go? And I was like, oh, who's going to be there? And he said, Noel Fielding. And I was like, and I couldn't go. I had a panic attack with the idea that I would meet the Mighty Boosh guy because he is like a god to me. I've never done that before. I'm not intimidated by most people, but just him. He's so brilliant. Like British Baking Show is the best thing. I like rewind just his bits sometimes because I'm like, he's so funny. Anyway, this is not what we're talking about. Gloria, how are you? How have you been? You guys have been shooting also during quarantine, correct?
No,
or not?
Well, we shut down because we have Rita Moreno, who's a national treasure. So Norman was the first to go in February. Suddenly he was not coming anymore. And then we were like, well, let's also protect Rita Moreno.
Yeah.
So we shut down in February. We were only halfway through our season, but we kept the room going and we finished the whole season, even though we never got to shoot those episodes, wrote them. So it was, it's like everyone's describing. It's we would be like 10 to 2, you know, and we would do what we could do. And it was nice to see everybody's face. And it was nice at the beginning of quarantine to have that sense of normalcy of like, I have to wake up and go do something. Yeah. Even though it's just here and it's talking to the people I know, but it was while everyone was baking bread, we were still doing this.
Remember sourdough, you guys? Remember?
Yeah. While everyone was like doing face masks, I was like, I was behind on all of that, and I was very grateful for that. But then we finished, and then that was that.
Yeah, because you guys are live. Yeah, so you tape live. That would be weird to do right now. I think some sitcoms are filming, but it seems to me very odd that how are they doing that?
I can tell. You can tell there's not an audience there. It's just a different. It's an energy. It adds to the energy and texture of the show. And so for us, it didn't make sense to me.
But Sarah, you're okay. I'm going to get back to some more basic questions. You guys, I see in chat, you're like, how do you actually become a showrunner? I'm like, okay, we're going to get to that. But I really am fascinated, Sarah. You are in production right now. So how do you factor in on that? Do you shoot in Vancouver or here? How does that work schedule wise? Like, what are the 3 things you're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was going to happen?
I mean, the testing schedule is very rigorous, and keeping different departments kind of away from each other is imperative, and mask use is imperative. And the basic philosophy underneath all of it, the medical philosophy underneath all of it is, if somebody tests positive, you contact trace them. You ascertain who else on the crew they may have been within 6 feet of, and all of those people go home to quarantine, symptomatic or not. Wow. And so you're trying to limit the spread of just quarantine, never mind just trying to keep people healthy, which obviously is the number one thing for us this season. But this is why you're seeing so many shows shut down or partially shut down every day. It's because somebody can test positive and then your director is quarantined, or the number 1 on your call sheet is quarantined. So that's like I think that's the thing that takes up the most of my attention every day, is just the protocol. Can we get into this location in time to clean it? How can we keep the background players 6 feet away from the actors and perhaps one another? And all of that. I mean, every show has its own issues, whether it's we want a live audience or our number 1 is an older person. And in our case, it's like, we're all fucking in murder. Like, there's no show if there's not kissing and killing. That required our actors really kind of getting right with each other. There's like a level of respect and seriousness this season that they're kind of in perpetual quarantine for one another.
It must be, can I ask you a question? Because I'm so curious about this, because it must be such a shift in set culture, because there's such a huge social aspect to it. I know that for me, I am a writer who loves to go to set and be on set, because that's where I get to see everybody and just like, shoot the shit for a little while, and also understand, down to the details, how we're pulling things off. But like, the fact that you have to be distanced, or you're in different kind of pods, and you can't extensively have a conversation with somebody or even giving notes to actors and things like that. Like, how I'm so curious about the logistics of it.
I mean, every show is different. I decided to default to watching Video Village remotely. So Video Village is just the little, there's like a little row of chairs and little monitors, and that's where the producers sit and annoy the director with notes. And so each of the writer producers has an iPad Pro now, and we stream Village to our desks at home every day, and we text the director.
Wow.
And a set PA or an AD calls us, gives us a little warning, and then calls us before every rehearsal, puts us on speakerphone. It's been working fine, but I'm with you. Like, there's something about being in the middle of it. I feel like we're asking people to work such long hours. People work, I mean, it's hard to describe how hard people work in a day on a set. And I just feel like, as the person who's writing all this stuff that's like really hard to pull off, I want to be standing there with them at the beginning of the season to be like, I'm watching you work this hard and I appreciate it. And it doesn't feel the same.
No, I mean, I will say on the set of Magicians, especially, I've never been on a television show where the writers were as involved with performance, and they were super specific about what, and it was kind of a rapport. They would always honor the director and go through them, but I could, there was a lot of, it was very clear that they were really being able to steer the ship in a way that really enhanced the material, I think. And that must be hard for you, giving your writers, so you being a writer and also having your writers have so much creative input, not being able to be there to sort of like communicate, as well as the actors. Everybody I know who's on sets right now is like, it's miserable because no one can talk to us. You can't get craft service. When you're doing a kissing thing, you have to put like weird things over your mouth so your lips aren't tight. Like, the stories I've heard are insane. I was like, okay, I'm so glad I'm not auditioning right now.
One thing I'll say about what you just said with the way that the writers on Magicians behaved on the set and the way they were interacting with the director and talking about performance, that is a way you can become a showrunner, is just for the people who are asking that question. Like, if I can have writers stay till the end of production, I always really want to, if the schedule can work out. And I kind of try to manipulate the schedule so that it does, because it's the training program to put a writer on set and say, you essentially are the boots on the ground. You are the showrunner for the day on the set. And then they text me if they're freaked out about something, right? And that's kind of how you learn by doing. That's kind of what this job is.
Yeah, that's incredible that you're able to mentor, but all of you guys in your history have such a generous spirit in trying to help other writers move up the ranks. And Marissa, can you talk a little bit, because some people really don't understand how you become a showrunner. So you started out as a performer and then became a writer. And how did you work your way up to the point where you were creating your own show?
I had a very, very bizarre, extensive path to writing. But yeah, I grew up as a little performer kid, auditioning, doing a ton of jobs. One of my auditions was for this singing group with Motown Records, and we were touring. I'm only telling you this part because there is a life-altering moment that happened during this group. But I thought, this is it. I've made it. This is exactly what I'm meant to be doing on stage all the time and singing for thousands of people. Anyways, that ended when I was diagnosed with lupus. I got very sick, and so from there, I started to focus back on my education and pursuing, going to college. And it was in college where I discovered my love for playwriting. I did tons of theater. I was still sort of keeping the performance bug alive. So anyways, I started writing there. And then immediately after college, I was like, where can I get a job that will turn what I like do? I love doing this thing. How can I turn this into a career? And my dad had been a transportation coordinator since before I was born. We're actually working in transportation on features and television. And at the time he had a friend who was working at Stephen Bochco Productions. And through that I started working as a PA at Stephen Bochco Productions, all the while writing. And I was like, oh my God, there's David Milch, there's Stephen Bochco, there's Mark Tinker. And soon I worked my way up to being their assistants and writing the whole time, gave David Milch my script. That turned into me just continuing until I booked my first job. I think I wrote feature was my first official writing gig. And then, you just, once you are in, you just keep doing it. I had similar frustrations, to you, Gloria, and Sarah, how I was pursuing the acting route all the while doing the PA work. And, because once that performance bug is in you, you can't shake it. But I was so frustrated with the roles that I was going for, how close I got to a part for the sidekick of the lead girl, but I wasn't Black or Latina. I was Asian, and it usually sort of went in that way. So then I thought, well, if I continue writing, then eventually I can write myself a part or parts for others like me.
Yeah, it's interesting because today, given you guys' diverse looks and background, there might be actually an easier path to performing than it would be 10 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
It's very interesting but your life path has come here, and now you guys run shows, you employ hundreds of people. Like, it's, everything happens, not for a reason, but it just happens, right? That's a Dr. Horrible quote.
Yes. The diversity across the board in roles and also in writing has vastly improved. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but from when I was actually pursuing acting as a career, I mean, it is changed dramatically.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd like to talk about that because each one of you in the interviews I read with you have been really bold and being very cognizant and deliberate about providing opportunities for people of diverse backgrounds and different kinds of roles for women, clearly out of frustration and familiarity with the business. How do you try to incorporate that into your scripts and in your rooms, and how do you navigate maybe pushback from a network or whatever? Monica, I mean, Midnight Texas had a really, that was the last pilot I just auditioned for, and it was so good. I loved it so much. Didn't make it, but the girl who got the part was like, oh my God, she's incredible. So you have such an interesting diversity in your cast, as well as all of you have in your shows. How do you foment that in a writer's room when you create the roles? How do you get it through the system? And are you always conscious of it?
It's interesting because it reflects my life and my family. And in a strange way, being on the all-white show doesn't feel real. Like, it's like, okay, this is TV land, not real world land. But it's also, I feel like these opportunities are opening up because more of us are in charge, and we want to reflect. I remember my first job where I wrote a person of color and my boss rewrote it for Blackness. And I was like, I am never writing a Black character on this show again. I don't want my name on this. This is weird. I have a do no harm policy with my writing. And I was just like, no, I can't with the slang. And so I feel like, and you can't, and it's funny to tell a person, because people get defensive if you say, men get defensive if you say a woman doesn't talk like that. A Black person doesn't talk like that. Somebody's like, oh, but so it's interesting because to me, it feels not conscious. It feels like finally we're reflecting a world that feels familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gloria, you are, and Gloria, how are you? I mean, you revolutionized like the One Day at a Time is such an amazing take on that show. And was that something that was asked for when you went in, or was your pitch? How did that happen? And how is it so beautifully rendered like that?
That's so nice. Thanks a lot, Felicia. Both Mike Royce and I, who is the lovely cis white guy who partnered with me, who was like, I think a Latina should be here. When they were like, we're doing a Latino show, we're a bunch of white guys. So he and Norman Lear were awesome. Like, we're so supportive. People would ask them questions and they would say, ask Gloria, consistently, to the point where they would just come straight to me, which was so amazing. So I really benefited also from these men who were really interested and invested in my success. It was tied to their own. And so it was such a beautiful journey. They just let me really get in there. I mean, I went into the set and I made a grocery list of these are the things that we would have in our kitchen. And then I put it around the kitchen the way we would have it.
Wow.
And little things, like we had a scene where she's eating leftovers in the pilot and they had Tupperware. And I was like, oh, That's white people. They've convinced you to buy things that you just have in your house. I need an old butter container that's been in a dishwasher 20 times. As to make it look like that, that's what we'd have. Because we were green because we were poor. Like that's just what that was, right? So it's just immigrant stuff. It's immigrant stuff. So we did that, and that's not in a script anywhere. It's just, that's because I was there. And the amount of people that reached out, not just Latino, just immigrant families who were like, oh my God, my grandmother had it in the tin. Oh my God, when I saw that butter tin and she opened it up and it was the food, I was dying. Like, that's the kind of stuff that, like, that level of specificity of experience and them allowing that was so, like, revolutionary for me. And then the more I really got emboldened, the more I got yeses, and then it worked. Right. So, like, the more you can do that, then you get a scoreboard in Hollywood. Then you can be like, well, maybe you should listen to me because I don't know, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So let's anyway. Okay. You know, like, so now I honestly, and also I'm older now, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't care. The people I was desperate to have like me at the beginning of this journey, I don't care about them anymore. Yeah. And the more I realized, I mean, like, especially if these are all women, once you get into a room and you realize, wait a minute, the stories I've been hearing most of my life about women and people of color have been told to me by old white men. Oh, no wonder I went through the trauma and the experience and the over-sexualization and the desperation for love and male attention. And no wonder they fed me a story and I believed it for so long. So I'm done with that. And now let's give people another option. And it's what this panel is all about. You know, it's like, this is actually the reality, everybody. So come with us to this place.
Yeah.
It's really nice here.
No, I love it.
The people watching this, we were all nodding so much our heads.
No, I have to tell you, I mean, this is very cathartic for me because I'm an actor and I wrote this guild because nobody would cast me anything other than a quirky secretary. And I have tried for years to pitch things in Hollywood. And the last audition I had was for my managers got mad at me because I was like, I don't want, this is the most, they wanted me to audition for a mom role. And after I had a baby, they would not send me out for anything other than a mom. And the parts were so stupid. I was like, a woman does not, I was enraged. And so I fired all of them. And then the last thing I pitched as a writer was a thing about gamer girls, teenage girls. And everyone loved it, except they didn't want teenagers to, it was too real. And I was like, oh, I didn't want sex in it. It was like, well, that's a problem. You should have had sex in it. Or we didn't want to deal with real things like body image problems. And I was like, I'm never pitching again. I'm sorry. Writing in Hollywood is too heartbreaking. I can't do it. I had to stop. So this is so, you guys got the power and you're in the right position and you are opening the doors that will hopefully lead to someone in 10 years pitching something about a gamer girl who has body image disorder, and maybe they can deal with that, right?
I want to watch that right now.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll write it as a book and then maybe it'll get optioned. Anyway, Marissa, I do want to talk a little bit about S.H.I.E.L.D. Before we get to, we have a great questions here. Marissa, I remember watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a great show. It's so fun. And you created 2 incredible roles for Asian women, but you you never shone a light on it. And that's what I love. And I think we should aspire to just letting reality be real and letting women be women and men be men and people be people on screen without being classified as their adjective, which is either their gender or their race or their nerddom or whatever it is. And how were you able to do that? Was that a fight with the network to have 2 Asian lead women, or was that just something you're just like, this is the way it is, let's do it?
Well, I had the great fortune of working alongside very like-minded people who were just as passionate as I was about, having a cast that represents the world that we live in, especially and just personally for, I have an amazing partner in my husband. We're both born and raised in LA. And growing up as an LA kid, you are in a city that is full of diversity. So it wasn't even a thing for us. We weren't even conscious of it in the casting process. We just knew that that's what we wanted. But as far as roles for Asian women, I did have a not so secret Asian agenda. I was like, first of all, I was such a huge fan of hers for forever. And there was a role that was very, appropriate for her. And the fact that that all worked out was kind of a dream come true. And then when it came to another lead role, Sky, who then turned into Daisy, who is the superhero Quake, I thought it would be wonderful to have like the first female Asian superhero on television. And that's what happened. And I'm just glad that it was well received. It wasn't, there weren't any huge bumps in the road to make that happen. And I do think across the board, we had a very diverse cast from our main cast to our guest actors, and also, behind the camera, we tried as best as we could to employ diverse and female voices. So I do have to say that I had great partners in that, in Jeff Loeb, Jeff Bell, my husband, and also ABC and Marvel. I do feel like we were supported through the whole run of the show.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's not always the case. And I've had experiences as a writer on other shows where I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Your agenda, whatever that is, some status quo BS. But welcome to the modern world. This is who is in charge. This is who are shaping stories. These are the voices you want to hear. I mean, Gloria, that detail, the impact that small detail has is so large. It just opens up the world for so many people to understand it. Like, oh my God, like that's me, and to identify with that. That's growing up in an Asian household. Any leftover, like a Tupper is all Tupperware.
Yeah.
No matter Tupperware. You save that and you use it until there are holes in it. And that is such an amazing detail. And just like for me as an Asian American, like watching, I think Crazy Rich Asians was such a huge breakthrough for us as a culture to be seen. I think there was this one detail where they enter somebody's home and they didn't even highlight it really. You just kind of, the camera just breezes past it, but there's just an assortment of shoes right by the door. And that that made me cry because that's just a detail that is now exposed to,
Sarah, I want to mention something too that you said, Marissa, about behind the scenes, because you guys, showrunners not only write, they manage the production, they have to deal with budget things, and they also can hire people. And the fact that a lot of crews, I will walk on the set and there will be all men being the grips, all the men of the DP, all the men, and magicians in particular. Not only did it not have bottled water, which I was like, of course, no one should have bottled water everywhere, but there's such a diversity and more women directors I worked on that show than any other show. Is that something that you are able to influence as a showrunner? Can you explain to the audience, like, exactly how much power do you have as a showrunner over hiring people below the line like that? And was that deliberate on your part to make sure that the behind the scenes was as diverse as it was?
I think influence is a good word, because no one person can handle every one of these hiring decisions, nor should we. The goal is to hire the line producer and the DP and the producing director who are really going to take seriously their responsibility to hire inclusively, which is just how the tone is set. It's how it was set on Magicians. It's how it's set on you. There's, I think some of what we're talking about, even with the kind of representation that you've seen on these amazing showrunner shows, it's like, I almost feel like we've been tricked when people are like, yes, look, strides. It's like, none of it is good enough. It's taking too fucking long. Let's stop pretending we're having a conversation where a little bit is enough. Like, there's no congratulations. You just have to do the work of not being a fucking prick.
Yeah.
Of not reinforcing white supremacist patriarchy with your job. That's like the bare minimum, I think, for all of us, regardless of gender. And I'm not saying that like I'm holding myself up like the poster person who's doing it perfectly. This is something I kind of learned along the way once I had become a showrunner. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily modeled to me. It was certainly by the partners I've had over the last couple of years. Greg Berlanti is amazing at creating a very deep well of just an inclusive well of people that you can hire. But I just realized it's important. No one's going to do it for you. People are too busy congratulating themselves for basically like just chipping away at the edges of a system that benefits them. And that doesn't cut out too much. They don't have to take too many risks. They don't have to bump people up. They don't have to worry. You know, it's just like, I want to take more risks than that. I don't want to be that safe at the you know, expense of people people walking on the set and seeing just a sea of white men. I think that that's an unwelcoming sight for actors, for guest directors. I think it's nobody's best work in 2020.
No. And it's not necessarily the best qualified people. You know, it just is a system that perpetuates itself because people hire people who they like, you know, I mean, it really is. And, you know, I see it with my baby, you know, having a kid has really transformed the way that we're indoctrinated from birth on every level about girls are with girls and boys are with boys. And that just simple idea of a binary world starts, and then you see the layers like, okay, girls dress in these kind of things, and this is how girls act, and every girl's story is a romance. So the end result is always them being approved of by a man. And you see, I just see the system, you know, chomping her up. And I'm like, okay, I can't fight the whole system, but I can put in her mind to question the system at every point. Like, so when Minnie Mouse is wearing, you know, high heels, I'm like, well, she can't run away from an enemy, can she? She can't get away, can she? You know, who's going to run faster from a monster? Minnie or Mickey? All right. Well, what kind of shoes should you be wearing? So
just imagine you, my sweet darling, my sweet baby girl, at the height of the apocalypse. High heels are just not going to work for you.
It's true.
You have enemies though?
You know,
enemies was she running from? I forgot what Minnie does.
She does nothing. Okay, that's why she can't watch Mickey's Clubhouse anymore, because she's useless. Minnie Mouse is useless as hell. It makes me furious.
I can't do Snow White, the original.
Oh no! Oh God!
Oh my God. It just doesn't hold up.
It doesn't.
A person who has feelings and a life.
No, they aren't real people. Like, yeah, and that's why I always question. I was like, is it a good decision to go off with a stranger who wakes you up? No.
Then there's also like, I remember growing up with stories of, I remember growing up with stories of the Kissing Bandit.
What is that? I don't know that one.
The Kissing Bandit, like in old cartoons or I Love Lucy, there was always a guy who snuck into your room and kissed you. And I'm like, rapey guy. That's a rapey guy.
God, it's so bad.
Bandit. Yeah, but like in my mind, it was always as a kid, I was like, oh, someone could sneak in and kiss you.
No. That's disgusting. Oh God, the world. Okay, I'm going to get to some audience questions because we only have 15 minutes. I could ask you guys questions all day. Oh, I want to ask you one thing. Just because
I have my giant water.
Yeah, that's the biggest water I've ever seen in my life. What is something that no one knew or told you beforehand about show running that you wish you knew before? DCR NDO asks. So, and that actually dovetailed to my question. What is something that you have to know how to do or learn how to do that you didn't expect when you finally had your own show? Because looking at the boss and working under the boss is one thing, being the boss is another. Monica, what do you feel like? Is there something that you were like, wow, I really wish I had known a little bit more about accounting or just firing people? Because that was my problem when I ran a company. I couldn't fire anybody.
I think for me, the hardest thing was Al and I got given brothers and sisters, which had a cast that was, to say they were intimidating is an understatement. And I wish someone had explained actors to me, to be perfectly honest. Like there's a sort of, you're asking something of someone that's emotionally raw and naked. There's a vulnerability and you have to live with the quirks, just like my family has to live with my writing quirks. And so we're just stuck with each other because what we ask each other to do is so emotional. Mm-hmm. And so I just wish someone had sat me down and sort of explained how to talk from that place of I have a vision, express the vision. That was just, I'll be honest, it took me a lot of years to be able to be like, oh shit, this is some fucked up shit I'm asking someone to draw into. Mm-hmm. I have to talk from the place of kindness. And I think I didn't have great examples of that always. So I feel like that's just sort of been my evolution in the last 10 years. I think watching Marissa and Jed too was really constructive, just like, okay, because I had a sort of training that was, I mean, my first boss used to call them meat puppets. And so there's just say what you say what you, and there was something so cruel about it all. So that was, for me, I wish someone had written a book to talk to me about talking.
It is hard being an actor, and the other, you guys, that might've been an advantage for you guys, but being an actor is either you're trash or you're a god, and there's no in between. There's no just like, oh, you're a person who works, come on in. The system really creates monsters out of insecure people who need love anyway. Believe me, all the therapy I've been to, it's a lot of self-realization, but you're either untouchable, and if you piss, you get every whim catered to, or you're literally like, do not park here. That is all I know about the 10 years that I was a commercial and day player actor. I was like, do not park here. Like when I first had my first meeting where I could park in the parking lot, I was like, it was years before I actually did it because I wasn't sure they were going to validate. Anyway, Gloria, what was something that when you finally got your own show and be in charge, that you really wish or had to work on and had to learn quickly?
I learned quickly, you have to be a great manager of people. You have to be concise, you have to know your heads of department, and you have to be clear in your messaging of your vision to them. And I think the benefit of, because there's so many people that get shows now and they haven't been in a room, the benefit of having been in a room for 12 years on so many other people's shows, good and bad, is that you get to see like, oh, sending hot pages to script puts a lot of people in a stressful position. Like I'm such an A+, like we break everything in pre-production.
Wow.
We have 5 scripts into all of my heads of department so that they can figure out construction budget, so that they can figure out wardrobe. No PA is running at 2 a.m. to find a flaming sword, like that. So like, I think you have to think about the 200 people that work for you. You have to think about them and be a human and say, how do I try to make not just my job super fun and interesting, but like make it easier on them too. And then once you figure that out and you have a really clear communication with them, then the day that the script does get thrown out and you do have to stay late, everyone's like, oh my God, it's totally fine. Because it's not normal. Right? It's not the regular that you're asking of them. You've done such a diligent job thus far. So I think that like, and there's still a lot of showrunners that don't do that, but like I do homework. I'm never like, let's blue sky all day. Like I got shit to do and I got a family I like. I want to get home. I like my husband and my children. Like, let's wrap this up. So I'll come in with a very clear idea. Like all of those things were things that I think I knew on some level, but then when you're in it, you're like, oh, right. I'm the one that has to look at the sets and approve them. And I'm the one so how can I make this job easier for everybody?
Well, that's kind of a generous attitude that you have that you wouldn't expect, being in charge of a bunch of people, thinking generously about their time, but it also pays off in, again, setting the tone on a show, right?
And it also, anytime, like these people will kill for you now. Like if you are decent, they will be like, any show you're on, let me know. Like it's such a lovely thing when you humanize the people that you work with and treat them like human beings.
Yeah, no, it's simple, but it's not always the time. Marissa, what did you have to learn? I want to hear it from all of you because this is, I think, really important.
I feel like along the same lines, everything that Monica and Gloria are saying, it's just, sure, you go into this business understanding that there is a hierarchy and there are different departments, but I feel like our approach has always been, both Jed and I have a theater background, and I feel like when you're putting up a theater production, it's a level playing field. We're all in it together. We're all on the same team, and everyone is bringing their own artistry to it. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Across the board, if you're working in television and film, everyone in every department, whether you're in the grip department to crafty, there is an artistry that they take pride in their work. And if you respect that and value that and just and honor the sense of play that we're all really there for, I mean, we all come into this, but like, it's still not lost on me, even after all these years of working. Like you generate something in your mind, and then you see hundreds of people making it come to life. And that can be as small as an intimate scene at a table, or like we're blowing up buildings and there's an alien ship that's coming to crash down on us. We had our visual effects supervisor, Mark Kolpak. If there's anyone that has such passion, like unrelenting passion for his job, it is him. He will spend hours on it, and that is his art. And so if you just remember that we're all here to achieve the same thing, I think that just elevates the sense of play in it. When you have to reassess is if you consistently feel like it's not fun anymore, then you got to say, okay, how do we shift gears? But I do feel like, not just me and Jed, but our show running partner, Jeff Bell, we all had that sense of, let's do this together. And if it starts to feel sad, then what are we doing wrong? Because it's a pressure cooker situation. You feel like you're constantly plugging holes in a sinking ship. When you're doing 22 episodes a season, it's just like, how do we stay afloat? Let's have fun be a part of that formula.
Yeah. People forget a lot that play needs to be, even though it is a job, it's a high, it's high pressure, high pay, but high stakes. But at the same time, like, I've been an actor on some sets, and I was like, I could do this every day. I've been an actor on for an hour, and I'm like, please get me out of here. You could not pay me all the money in the world to do these lines every day. I look at actors on like Law and Order and stuff. I'm like, God bless you. Like, give me an alien or give me a joke. Like, I just admire people, they find their niche and hopefully they're happy or they're a miserable person, which kind of rubs off. I want to ask a question. Somebody's asking, what tips do you suggest for young women who want to work their way up to being a showrunner? I want to kind of dovetail that question into a question I had for especially Glow and Sarah. Like, you guys have done a lot of work providing material online to help people learn about writing in Hollywood. Gloria, you have your Hollywood 101 series, which brilliant. If you guys haven't seen these videos, definitely check them out. I hope one of my mods can link it. And Sarah Gamble Official, the YouTube channel, has fantastic talks with a bunch of writers, including me. It's a great episode. Do you guys consider why did you guys do that? And do you consider having an online presence really important as a personality and as a showrunner in the business, or is it something you just do for fun, or is it both? Like, how important is that to you?
I think it's both. I think the largest thing is, I always think like, oh, I could have saved myself 2 years. Right? I could have saved myself at least 2 years. So can I save somebody else 2 years by just giving them some basic stuff? And I used to do a lot of sit downs and coffees with writers and stuff. And there's just no time now to do that. Mm-hmm. So I just decided, you know what, I'll put together, I did it all on Twitter. I tweeted out like, hey, if somebody gives me a studio and edits it, I will do like a 10 episode Hollywood 101 for free. Awesome. And then BuzzFeed reached out and Beto Like reached out and YouTube gave us free space and we shot it all in 2 days. And it's hours of me just saying whatever I know, which is not much, but it's more than people starting out. And so here's one person's perspective about how to get an agent or a manager, or how to catch fire. Cause that's what ultimately it is. You have to catch fire. You have to find a way to find something that's going to catch fire. Yeah. And what are the ways to do that, and just talking around that. And so Mike and I break down the One Day at a Time pilot and how we wrote it. Like all of that is done. And I just felt like that information for my community, especially, it shouldn't be privileged information. And a lot of people do not have access to going to Harvard or going to a fancy school. And how can you get this information through the library and through online resources, which I think you can now, especially for marginalized communities that do not have access.
Yeah.
So that's why I put that together. And then I found that I think season 2 of One Day at a Time, I wrote a very earnest tweet where I was like, hey guys, we're not doing great. If you like the show, watch 5 episodes and tell a friend to watch 5 episodes. And that tweet went viral worldwide. And people, I guess Sony, a bunch of different places were analyzing the tweet. And they were like, what was it about this tweet? And they said it was just that I was earnest and that I had earned some capital because I had done a lot of Q&As, and that I was sort of lifting the curtain of saying like, it's not glamorous. For One Day at a Time, every step of that show has been fighting to get it made, fighting to keep it on, fighting to get it seen, fighting to get a budget. Like Justin Simeon and I the first year we were out, we were the only 2 Netflix shows, Dear White People and One Day at a Time were the only 2 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And you open up the LA Times and it's all The Crown and Stranger Things. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
You know, so how do you tell people, oh, we don't also get the same amount of money as white shows? We don't also get the same type of opportunities to be on. People didn't know. People were like, why aren't you on the Today Show? And it's like, because they pass. Because they know.
People don't really understand. Why aren't you on that show? I'm like, no, there's reasons. There's always a reason.
The amount of like institutionalized racism and sexism of like who gets the microphone to even promote their show.
Yeah.
Who gets the microphone even? It's just astounding. And so the more that you talk about these things and sort of reveal behind the curtain, the more I think people saw me as like she's just in there trying to make her stuff. Help her out. I don't know.
No, Sarah, what motivated you to do those talks? And I didn't actually hear what was the one thing that you wanted to know from show writing. So I'd love to hear that. The one thing that you really felt like, oh, I really need to learn this, or I wish I'd known this. And then can you dovetail into why you did all these talks with these writers? Because they're really lovely.
You've asked me a complicated multi-part question.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I forgot I skipped over you. That's my bad moderator.
So the answer to your showrunner question.
Yes.
And this, I would not give this advice necessarily to somebody who's in a room, who's not the boss.
Yeah.
You have to learn a level of patience that is very weird when you're a showrunner, because you're sort of, especially when you're the show creator, people are saying your power is that it's your vision. Your importance to this job, what you have to do every day is execute your vision. Mm-hmm. It's very easy, especially when you're kind of new at the job and really scared you're going to get fired or that it's going to suck, to be like, okay, well, let me make sure I really like every single shirt that every single person is wearing. And if in the master, I don't think that performance is right, let me make sure I give that note immediately. And if the pitch is going in the wrong direction, let me stop them right away. Like, I've had to learn to slow my engine down a little bit. And I frequently say the words to myself, this is a long game, so that I remember that you got to let people evolve their idea. And you have to say, okay, yes, you have to say yes more than no. And it's not about egotism for me. It's not about wanting everything to look exactly the way I envision it. It really came for me from a place of being like, what if it sucks? How can I do everything in my power to make sure it's not cheesy and it's not bad and it's the best it can be in this limited time and budget? And the answer to that question is stand there and be uncomfortable and let other people talk a little more. So that's my answer to that.
Yes, thank you.
The thing about the interviewing writers, and Gloria and I had an amazing conversation also for that series, is it was the same. I just wanted to democratize the info. I didn't know anybody when I was trying to break in. I knew one person and who had just come to a play. And I spent a lot of time like not knowing. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't think it's necessary anymore. And I think if we're serious about having voices not from Harvard as just part of the conversation, then I feel like this is a small way to help is just make this stuff available for free on social media. And then selfishly, like now I'm in a position where I can ask amazing writers if they'll come talk to me and give me all their secrets, and they do. So in the pandemic, I had nothing else to do. So I was like, Gloria, tell me everything. And to you as well, Felicia. So
yeah.
But there was a part of that question that you asked that like kind of made a little flag wave in my head, which was like, do you think it's important for writers to be on social media? Like, is that it can be, but like, because it was the Stone Age, like 16 or 17 years ago when I was trying to break in, everyone was like, you got to network, you got to go to parties. Like, I'm not a party girl. I'm not really that girl who's going to do amazing, like schmoozing at a party with a drink in my hand. That's never really been me. And I felt terrible about it.
Yeah.
There are people for whom social media is too toxic. Like, you have to figure out how to maneuver a place that's that sexist, racist, ableist, ageist. Like, people say mean things when you're there, and you need a strategy for that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have a thick enough skin to be able to do that. And great, if you can turn that into money, then turn it into money. It's okay. There are other ways. Like, I have never had an interview with a writer for a job where I even knew what their follower count was. Like, I've never really looked somebody up like that before I met them. So that's not part of the equation at all.
No. I mean, it's interesting because for actors, we had a conversation about voiceover actors and actors as well. Like their follower numbers are actually quite important right now. You know, people do look 100%, and that could mean the difference between getting a job or not. And so it's almost relieving to hear that writers don't have that expectation in their lives. Guys, we're out of time, and I have so many other questions, but we have to wrap it up because you guys are all running shows. So if you guys could please tell everyone where they could follow you, if you want to share any information about latest projects or things you want to drive people to that you love, please do it. Marissa, can you go first, please?
I guess you could find me on Instagram at Mo Tantrone. I think that's mainly the social media source that I use. But next year I will have more of a online resource where people can come and follow in your footsteps, Gloria and Sarah, having access, probably specifically leaning towards Asian American voices. And so yeah, that's what works for next year.
Let me know if I can help you.
Please.
Of course. Monica, where can everyone find you?
I want to see pictures of my dog on Insta and my lizards. Yeah, like Monica-Breen and Twitter. But yeah, no, I'm mostly in my house.
That's good. It's okay, fine. I stay in my house all the time, but I'm online all the time, so I'm dealing with that. Sarah, where can people find you? And remind them of where they could find your videos, please.
Yes. Monica's dog's really cute though. I follow her on Instagram and
Francis is a doll.
It's worth a follow for that doggy.
yeah, I'm on Instagram
Sure.
as Sarah Gamble.
Mhm.
And I post little snippets of those videos sometimes. And then if you go to YouTube, it's under Sarah Gamble Official. And then like I'm every now and again, I'll go to Twitter and then I'll be like, oof, never mind.
Yeah.
I fleeted today and I felt dirty. Gloria, where can people find you? And where can they find the Hollywood 101 videos, please?
Yes, the Hollywood 101 videos are on YouTube's Beto Like channel through BuzzFeed. And you can just, Google me and Hollywood 101, and I think it comes up.
Great.
I am on Twitter and Instagram. I never do DMs because I like to answer questions for like your question is somebody else's question. So I never go to DMs are too scary for me. So I do everything public on Twitter. So I am on Instagram, but I don't do DMs there. So just go to Twitter and ask me stuff on Twitter. I will answer. I will always answer. Really.
No, you have amazing threads. Just one thread, I'll be like, wow, I'll just read every single response because sometimes I'm just like blown away with how much I learned from just you casually answering somebody. So thank you for that. Well, thank you so much for everything and spending your time here. Thank you to the audience for asking great questions. I never get to all of them because these guests are so fascinating. And thank you for supporting Women Are. Hopefully we'll be back with another season of episodes. Until then, watch them on the Twitch VOD, or it's going to be on YouTube later. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you, guys.